I put a camera on my dog. The footage haunts me to this day. I'd always thought of the woods behind my house as, well, normal, peaceful. I grew up out there, and the trees were as much part of my life as the people in town. They were old, tall pines and oaks, thick trunks older than my grandparents, stretching up and up until the sky vanished in a canopy of green. When the wind blew, the whole forest would sigh, and for a moment, you could almost believe it was alive. My dog Murphy, he loved it. Every morning, he'd be by the door before dawn, tail wagging, ready to disappear into the trails that twisted and turned like a maze. He's a big shepherd mix, all legs and floppy ears, but he runs like he was built for those paths. I'd watch him vanish into the underbrush, just a flash of fur and joy, and I'd feel at peace, I guess. Like the world couldn't touch us out here. A few months back, I bought this little camera online, a cheap action camera, not fancy, but waterproof and tough. I thought it'd be fun to see the world the way Murphy did. You know, those YouTube videos people make GoPros strapped to their dogs. The idea made me smile. I figured I'd get some shaky shots of his ears flopping, a squirrel or two darting away, nothing more. So I strapped it to his collar one morning and let him go. My first video was exactly what I expected. It was shaky, sure. Every step a little jolt of motion, but the forest was beautiful through his eyes. Sunlight speckled the dirt path with gold and green. The air was thick with the hum of insects, the distant caws of crows. Murphy's ears flopped in and out of the frame as he bounded down the trail, nose to the ground, sniffing every root and rock. I could almost smell the pine and damp earth through the screen. I watched the first video 3 times in a row that night, a beer in my hand, a smile I couldn't wipe away. It was peaceful, pure, like seeing the world again for the first time. The next few videos were more of the same. Murphy leaping over fallen logs, nosing at old stumps, pausing to lap water from a puddle that reflected the sky like glass. He was always moving, always exploring, and I got to follow along without leaving my living room. At night, I'd close my eyes and let the footage play in my head. The rustle of leaves, the soft crack of twigs, the rhythm of breathing, his and the forest's. It was almost enough to make me forget how lonely this place can feel when the sun goes down. One night, about a week into this new habit, I noticed something I hadn't before. Murphy had paused on a small hill overlooking the creek. He was panting, tongue lolling, tail still wagging. And in the background, just for a second, there was a shape between the trees. A dark smudge, barely there. At first I didn't think much of it. The woods are full of shadows, after all. Branches, leaves, tricks of the light. I told myself it was nothing. A flicker of shadow, a bend in the trees. Oh, but when I paused the video and went frame by frame, it was still there. Tall, thin, standing dead still while everything else moved. I didn't mention it to anyone. What was I supposed to say? I think my dog filmed a ghost in the woods. Even to me, it sounded ridiculous. So I shrugged it off. Kept watching the videos. Kept telling myself it was nothing. The next few recordings went back to normal. Murphy chasing a butterfly, digging at something in the dirt that turned out to be an old bone, maybe deer. That kind of footage that made me laugh and shake my head. Because he was being Murphy. But I couldn't stop thinking about that shadow. A week later, the camera caught something else. Murphy was deeper in the woods than usual. The trees were closer together, the light thinner, the underbrush so thick he had to push through it with his shoulders. He stopped at a clearing, just a circle of moss and rock where the light slanted and sharp and bright. He sniffed the air, ears perked, and there, at the very edge of the clearing, was that same shape. This time it was closer, clearer, still too dark to make out details, but unmistakably there. It didn't move, didn't shift like leaves or sway like a branch. It just watched. Murphy didn't bark, didn't whimper, didn't even seem to see it. He turned and trotted away, camera bobbing with each step. I watched that part over and over, told myself it had to be a person, a hiker, maybe, or some hunter in camo. But deep down, I knew. There aren't many people out there. The nearest neighbor's half a mile away, and nobody comes into these woods without reason. After that, I started to feel different when I watched the footage. It wasn't relaxing anymore. My shoulders would tense, my mouth would go dry, because I knew that if I kept watching, I'd see it again. And if it was getting closer, I didn't want to know what that meant. Murphy didn't act like anything was wrong. He still bounded through the door every morning, tail wagging, nose to the ground. Still slept at my feet at night, snoring soft and warm. But when I let him out into the yard, he started glancing at the trees more often. Head cocked, ears up, like he could hear something I couldn't. I told myself I'd stop, that I wouldn't watch the next video. That was a lie, because part of me needed to know. Part of me was too curious to look away. I told myself I wouldn't watch that next video. I told myself I would delete it, or at least keep it shut away, buried in the folders I'd already started to hide on my computer. But curiosity is a tricky thing, especially when it's tangled up with fear. I opened the file late one night. The house silent around me. The only light, the glow of my screen. The video started like any other. Murphy trotting along the edge of the creek, stopping to sniff a patch of mushrooms. The water was low that day, trickling slow over the stones. His ears flicked at every small sound. A frog, a bird, the wind in the pines. He looked normal, like nothing was wrong. But in the background, through the gaps in the trees, I could see it. The figure, closer than before. It was just a glimpse, a shadow between two trunks, but it was enough to stop my breath in my chest. I paused the video, squinted at the screen. It wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't a branch. It was standing there, tall and thin, just as it did last time. A shape that didn't fit with the rest of the forest. Murphy didn't seem to notice. He trotted on, camera bouncing with each step as he did before. But as he turned a corner, the shape moved. It stepped out from behind the tree, a single step, smooth, unnaturally graceful. My hand was shaking so bad, I had to set the mouse down. I rewound the footage, played it again. The figure was closer now, maybe 50 feet from the camera. I still couldn't see a face. It was just darkness in the shape of a man, or what I assumed to be one at least. The video went on. Murphy ran up a small rise, stopped to sniff at a patch of bracken. When the camera swung back, the figure was gone. Gone. Like it'd never been there at all. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the screen painting the room in a cold blue. I could hear Murphy panting on the video, the crack of twigs under his paws, but my own breath felt like it was stuck in my throat. I tried to tell myself it was just a person, someone out hunting, maybe, or hiking, but the way it moved, so smooth, so careful, it didn't look like any person I'd ever seen. And Murphy didn't even react. Dogs know, they always know. The next few videos were worse, so much worse. I wish I could say they were the same, that nothing else happened, but I'd be lying. 2 days later, Murphy's footage took him deeper into the woods, past the usual trails, past the creek, into a part of the forest I didn't even recognize. The trees, they were older, thicker. The light didn't reach the ground, just thin threads of gold that turned the underbrush into a black and green maze. Murphy's breathing was louder, faster. His ears flicked back and forth, tail held low. He was nervous. For the first time in every single piece of footage, he was nervous. Then the camera caught it. Not the figure. Not this time. A hand. Just for a moment, reaching out from behind a trunk, pale and long-fingered. It pulled back just as Murphy looked over. I paused the video, rewound, paused again. It was there. A hand that didn't belong. Not the color of sun-browned skin. Pale as milk, with fingers too thin and too long. I shut the laptop and sat there for a long time, listening to the house settle around me, the creak of the floorboards, the hush of wind outside the window. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe any of it. But in the back of my mind, I knew this wasn't something natural. This wasn't something human. That same night, I uploaded the media onto YouTube, just for the comments to tell me that this was fake or staged. I tried showing this to some of the local authorities. Again, much of the same, that it was faked or that I was trying to push some kind of paranormal agenda. I gave up at that point. I just needed to make sure that I was safe, that Murphy was safe. The next day, Murphy started acting different. At night, he'd stand at the door, staring out at the tree line. He wouldn't go near it during the day. If I forced him outside, he'd do his business and bolt back in, tail tucked, ears flat. He'd never done that before. I stopped taking him out as far. Kept to the yard, the short trails near the fence line, but he'd still look out at the woods like he could see something that I couldn't. Some nights I'd wake up to him pacing the house, nails clicking on the tile. He'd whimper, low and soft, like he was afraid to make too much noise. I'd pet him and tell him it was okay, but my voice shook every time I tried to reassure him. I tried to convince myself to stop watching the footage, to just delete it all and forget it ever happened. But that's not how it works. Once you've seen something like that, you can't just unsee it. I needed to know if it was still out there, if it was getting closer, if it was coming for us. I couldn't stop. I wish I could say I did. But the more I watched, the more I needed to know. Like the footage was a wound I couldn't help but pick at. Like maybe if I understood it, I'd stop feeling like it was so real. The next video started normal. Murphy bounding through a patch of ferns, ears up, tail wagging. But it was different. It was so different. He was moving slower, more cautious. He kept glancing back, his head lower, much lower than usual. The air was thicker somehow. I could tell through the camera. I could almost taste the dampness, the way it clung to the leaves, the way it muffled the world. He reached the clearing again. The same circle of moss and rock I'd seen in earlier videos. But this time, the figure was already there, standing in the center, tall and motionless, like it had been waiting for him. The camera jostled as Murphy hesitated. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just froze. For a long moment, everything was still. Even the trees seemed to hold their breath. Then Murphy turned and ran. The footage turned chaotic, branches whipping past, the forest a blur of green and brown. But even through the frantic motion, I caught glimpses of it. The figure moving, not walking, sliding, like it didn't need to step, didn't need to touch the ground, just drifting after him. Murphy didn't stop until he reached the edge of the woods. He paused at the tree line, panting, ears pinned back. The camera caught the figure one last time, standing just beyond the shadow line, watching. Always watching. I paused the video there. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. My hands were clammy, my mouth dry. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. I started leaving the lights on at night. I told myself it was for Murphy, that he'd feel safer. But really, it was for me. I didn't want to see my own reflection in the dark windows. Didn't want to wonder what might be standing just beyond them. A few nights later, I woke up to him whining at the door. Not barking, not growling, just a low, desperate sound, like he was begging me not to open it. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft scrape of his claws on the wood. When I finally fell back asleep, I dreamed of trees swallowing the house whole. The final video was the worst. It started normal. Murphy trotting along the edge of the woods, ears up, but the light was wrong. Dim. Gray, like the sun had decided not to rise that day. He paused at the bend in the path. The camera swung left, right, then centered on the figure. Closer now, so close I could see the details, or the lack of them. No face, just a suggestion of one, an absence of light where features should have been. No clothes, no skin, just darkness in the shape of a man. Murphy didn't move. The figure tilted its head, just a little. A question, almost, like it was curious. Then it took a step forward. One step. Murphy flinched. Took a step back. The figure stepped again, and again. Each step measured, but that same unnatural smoothness, as if not touching the ground at all. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to turn the video off, to slam the laptop shut and never open it again. But I couldn't. I needed to see how this ended. Murphy turned and ran yet again. The footage turned frantic, dirts and roots and sky flickering past in jerky snapshots. His breathing was loud and ragged. I could hear my own breath in the dark room, harsh and shallow. The video ended at the edge of my yard. Murphy paused at the fence, looking back. The figure was there, standing just beyond the last trees, watching, always watching. That night, I dreamed of the figure stepping out of the forest, of it crossing the yard, silent and patient, of it reaching the door and laying one pale hand against the glass. When I woke up, Murphy was at the window, staring out, ears, yet again, pinned straight flat. And in the reflection of the glass, I thought I saw something tall and thin, standing just beyond the porch light's reach. I didn't want to watch the footage for a few days after that last knock. Couldn't. Every time I so much as looked at the camera, my chest would hurt. Painfully. My skin would crawl like it was trying to tear itself off. Murphy was worse. He wouldn't leave my side. He slept pressed against me, head on my chest. Every muscle in my body tensed, like he was waiting for something to break through the walls. The house felt smaller, like the walls were closing in around us, leaving just enough space for fear. On the third night, I heard it again. Not a knock, not this time. A scrape. Something moving across the porch. Slow, like fingernails on wood. Murphy whimpered. I sat there in the dark, heart pounding, breath caught in my throat. Then I heard it. A voice. Soft, almost gentle, calling my name. I didn't go to the door. I didn't need to. Because I could see it in my mind's eye. The figure standing there, pale hand pressed against the glass, blank face turned towards me, waiting. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I woke up, the sun was up and the world looked almost normal again. Almost. I took Murphy out to the yard that morning. He wouldn't leave the porch, wouldn't set a foot in the grass. I couldn't blame him. The woods looked different. The shadows under the pines darker, heavier, like they were holding their breath. I turned on the camera that afternoon. I don't know why. Curiosity, desperation, a need to see it, to prove to myself I wasn't just going crazy. The footage was short, barely a minute long. Murphy at the edge of the yard, staring out at the trees. His tail was down. He didn't move. Then the figure stepped out from the trees and into the yard. No hesitation. It didn't hurry. It didn't rush. It moved like it had all the time in the world. Murphy didn't bark, didn't run. He just stared. The figure stopped at the edge of the camera's frame, tilted its head. Then it stepped closer. One step, then another. Each footfall soundless. Each movement smooth as oil on water. When it reached the camera, it leaned down, like it was peering through the lens, seeing me. The footage ended there. I sat there for a long time, the cursor blinking on the screen. The final frame burned into my mind. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the door, rifle across my knees, Murphy at my feet. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps, every breath of the wind in the trees like a whisper. At midnight, it knocked. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Then the handle turned. I raised the rifle, breath ragged in my throat. Murphy pressed closer, whimpering. The door didn't open, but I saw the shadow under it. Too thin, too tall, like it was stretching, reaching. The knocking stopped, but the presence didn't. I could feel it, pressed against the other side of the door. Patient, and patient, and patient, waiting for me to open it. I don't know how long I sat there, but when the sun rose, the shadow was gone, and I was still alive. I took Murphy and left that morning. I didn't pack, didn't lock up, just left. I drove until the gas tank was empty, then drove some more. I haven't been back. Sometimes, though, late at night, in a motel room or a borrowed couch, somewhere I thought was safe, I hear it. 3 slow knocks. The scrape of something on the porch. A soft voice calling my name. I know it's still out there. Watching. Waiting. And one day, I know I'll have to open that door.